So there have been a couple of different bills that the Democrats have discussed through the course of this year. I apologize for 1 sec. I'm sorry. This is like really devastating right now. Okay. I got a COVID test 2 days ago. I don't have COVID. So there have been a couple of different bills that the Democrats have tried to roll out around voting rights. You of course have the For the People Act, Joe Biden's bill, pretty all encompassing, not only in ensuring voting rights and ending partisan gerrymandering, but also new disclosure of campaign finance. And that was a non-starter. And I don't just mean because of the filibuster, like that eventually would have stopped it. I mean, they didn't even get started because people like Joe Manchin were against that bill. Doesn't seem to really care about whether you get to vote or not, and certainly doesn't want more disclosure of big donations and things like that. So he was against that. So then he had a second bill that was more pared down, and no Republicans would support it. But don't worry, we have a backup. And that is this third voting bill that Joe Manchin approved. He's down for it. And he has spent literally weeks trying to get Republicans to sign on to it, because it isn't just that we need to get Manchin. It isn't just that we need to get to 50 votes. This is the Senate where there's an automatic filibuster for literally everything. So you have to get 10 Republicans to sign on. I mean, you don't have to. Alternatively, you could get rid of the filibuster or reform it on this topic, but that again is a non-starter for Joe Manchin. And so there's been all this drama. We've gone through literally months of bill after bill after bill and courting Republicans and all that. And yesterday they had a vote, and what happened? Well, the Senate Republicans blocked it. It didn't pass. I mean, it's not even going on to a full, like they're just automatically blocking it in the Senate because, and it's the weirdest thing, Joe Manchin, who was so sure that he could get Republicans to cross the aisle and spent weeks doing it. By the way, not just spending his weeks, let's be clear, he's spending our weeks. We don't have long for the window to close where literally nothing can be done. We have this brief period, and he wasted more of it yet again, and no Republicans actually supported it. So you had all 50 Democrats and independents supported bringing, this is the Freedom to Vote Act to the floor. But 50 Republicans voted against doing so. And that means that they were 10 short of the 60 you need in a functional democracy. You should have to have 60 senators, which represent far, far, far less than 50% of the population, can block voting reform necessary to reform the system to make it more actually reflective of what the people want. Is that amazing? That you have a system that is biased against the majority, and because it's biased against the majority, it can stop reforms necessary to get rid of the bias. It's baked in. And you have it being defended. But I wanna be very clear about who the ultimate bad guys are here, because obviously the 50 Republicans are bad. They don't actually have a problem. It's not that the bill is gonna reduce the security or any of the nonsense that they're going to say to cover for it. They want states to be free to suppress the vote, and that's what we've been getting. We'll get back to the numbers in a little bit. We've gone over them multiple times. So they're bad. We all know that. That's the easiest thing in the world. But it is the Democrats at the end of the day that in theory are in charge. Now they're not in charge really in the Senate under the status quo because of the filibuster, but they do have everything they need to reform the filibuster or to get rid of the filibuster. Along a wide swath of possible reforms, you could do one of the simplest things that I want, which is hashtag force the buster. That is actually making them filibuster if they're gonna filibuster. Because here is the amazing thing. Republicans voted against this weakened down version of a weakened down version of a voting rights bill. And we're talking about it, and some other good people in independent media will do it. You know, New York Times had an article about it, that's good. And that was yesterday, and now we're moving on. And that's it. What, is there gonna be a news cycle for the next 5 days about it? No, of course there's not gonna be a news cycle for 5 days about it. And so what do you have? You have the Republicans doing something that is, at least in theory, very unpopular. You have them willing to potentially grind the Senate to a halt to make sure that you can't vote. But I said hypothetically unpopular because they don't have to do that. They don't have to grind anything to a halt. They just wouldn't support it. They filibustered it with no filibuster. There's not gonna be any Mr. Smith goes to Washington. There's not gonna be any Cat in the Hat readings. Ted Cruz isn't gonna have to like talk about what movies he's watched recently. There's not going to be a display in DC that the media, or at the very least C-SPAN, can stay focused on. And we get to see as a country, how long are the Republicans willing to stop this? How long are they willing to show the American people that they don't give a damn if we have a functioning democracy or not? But we don't have that. And it's not that we don't have that because of the Republicans. We don't have that because of the Democrats. We can't get them to eliminate the filibuster. We can't get them to reform the filibuster, lower the threshold maybe, which, let's be very clear, if you lowered it to 56 or to 55 votes or to 52 votes, it wouldn't matter in this case anyway. They're not gonna do a carve out so that we can have a democracy, that certain bills like this can be passed. Although I will point out, as I always do, that carve outs already exist for everything the Republicans will ever want to do. They can get their tax cuts, they can get their justices, but you don't get a carve out for democracy. And you can't even force them to actually do the filibuster. The simplest reform imaginable, that is beyond us because of people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, but not even just them. There's others besides.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.